Hi there, let's talk about the financing section of our purchase agreement. So this is specific to the RVAR purchase agreement. It is section 11 is where it's going to begin. And we're going to start with the purchase price. So if you have the agenda that I sent to you, you'll see that I have literally just copied the section of the purchase agreement that pertains to the financing. And it is very, very important when you are the buyer's agent that you fully fill out the financing section. So we're going to start. And if you'd like to follow along and fill it out, you are welcome to. What we're going to be looking at is section 11. Most importantly, 11B, which is going to talk about what type of financing we're doing. Let's just go ahead and fill out our purchase price. So we will go ahead and put in there that the purchase price will be $245,000. Okay. Then we're going to go to 11A, which is the deposit. It is very, very important that you guys fill out this deposit section and fill it out correctly. I'm going to put in there that we're doing a $1,000 earnest money amount to be held by, and you're filling this out. So I'm assuming you are the buyer's agent. So you are going to put in there that Wainwright and Co. Realtors is going to be holding the earnest money deposit. That makes us, the firm, the escrow agent. And what I want you to know about earnest money deposits and escrow, so that you can tell it to your buyer. Your buyer doesn't know what an earnest money deposit is. Your buyer doesn't know what an escrow account is, most likely. So what I say to my buyer is, hey, buyer, we're going to put down a deposit. This is a good faith amount of money that represents your earnest intentions to purchase this home. So what we're going to be doing with it is I'm going to, if this contract is awarded to you, I'm going to be, as the buyer's agent, taking this check to my office where they will hold it in their non-interest bearing escrow account until closing. And at closing, this will be credited to you. Essentially, you're prepaying $1,000 towards your closing costs, because you're going to get the benefit, buyer, of using this money at closing. It's going to go into our non-interest bearing escrow account at my firm, where it will sit until we close. Now, this needs to be a personal check. If this is a cash contract, it can be cash, it can be whatever you want it to be. But if there is going to be a mortgage product associated with this transaction, this needs to be a personal check from a checking account belonging to one of the buyers. The money has to be seasoned, and that is a lender term. What that means is the lender wants to see that this earnest money deposit truly is coming from the buyer, from their personal checking account, and has been sitting in their account long enough that the lender will consider that their own money. Okay. Oftentimes, buyers say, well, I don't have a checkbook. I pay everything online. Well, that's happening more and more. And we're only going to see that happen even more. So the next best is going to be a cashier's check from their bank with money from their account. Tell them, don't show up with $1,000 in cash and say, hey, bank, will you give me a cashier's check? That money will not ever be able to be verified by the lender. What they are trying to prevent is from you using money that isn't your own. The earnest money deposit is supposed to be your own money from your own bank account. If it isn't, then it may require that a gift letter is put in place by a family member who says they gave you the money. Okay, wherever you got this money from. Or ultimately, the lender is not going to be able to verify the funds and is not going to be able to use it as an earnest money deposit. I don't like that for the seller. 2 weeks into the contract, as the listing agent, I don't want the earnest money deposit removed. That is the buyer's skin in the game. That is the buyer saying, that's what I have to lose if I breach this contract? As a seller, I don't want to know that the buyer has absolutely nothing in this, right? I want them to feel a sting if they decide to just walk for no reason. So that's going over what earnest money deposits should be. Ideally, a personal check from their personal checking account. Secondarily, it could be a cashier's check from their own bank where they can show that they took $1,000 out of their personal checking account and the banker issued a cashier's check right at the same time. That is the next best thing. Please don't show up here with a wad of cash and say, here's my earnest money deposit. Okay. Please call us if that is, if you're having trouble figuring out an earnest money or a way to get an earnest money. There's a hierarchy in which we have more desirable forms of earnest money deposits. Ultimately, we're not going to turn anybody away, but it just presents problems down the road. So I would rather us get it done correctly in the first place. Okay, let's keep moving. In that deposit section, now that we've indicated who's holding it, we're going to indicate what form the payment is coming to you as. And it's most often checking that box for check. Okay. Check would be a personal check or a cashier's check. If it's a money order, you're going to click other and write money order. I don't want money orders, y'all. Okay. They're not verifiable. When you show up at a convenience store with $1,000 and say, can I get a money order? We can't verify those funds. The lender can't verify the funds. So money order is not going to be my top pick. Okay. And then we're going to say purchaser has paid or shall deliver. If they are handing you that, okay, there are pros and cons to both of these. In an ideal world, I'm going to have you check has paid and you're going to get that check from them right that minute. Okay. Realistically, I'm not using that option. You know why? We may not even get that offer. And now I've got their check and I got to get their check back to them and I'm responsible for their check the whole time. No, thank you. So I, Ashley, as a buyer's agent, am almost always checking shall deliver. Now, here's the problem. I'm real bad at remembering things later and I'm just getting worse. So when I write an offer and I hit shall deliver, okay, I'm either hopping on Gmail and I'm sending myself an email that is scheduled to be delivered 2 days from now that says, Ashley, did you forget about getting that check? Did you forget about getting that earnest money? So that 2 days from now, future Ashley gets an email from past Ashley, sort of back to the future style that says, Ashley, go get that check. Okay. I'm all excited. I've turned in my winning offer. I've given it to Jennifer at the office. I've sent it to wainwrightco@gmail.com. And then I forget to get the check from my buyers. Okay. We're going to have an escrow violation if I forget it. So I'm either sending myself a message to the future or I'm putting a reminder in my phone for 24 hours later to say, go get that check. Did you get the bid? Did you win the deal? Then go get that check. Okay. Start doing this now. Don't wait till you're 20 years in the business and you got too many irons in the fire and you feel like you might tear your own hair out. Okay. Set these processes in place now. Make sure now you're doing the things that future you will be glad you have already made that a practice. Okay. All right. What it says is that the check shall be delivered to the escrow agent. That is us. That is the firm. That is Wainwright & Company. You are an agent of Wainwright & Company. So handing it to you counts. That you're going to get it within 5 business days. Please don't wait 5 business days. Instead, go get it faster than that and bring it to us so that we can get that just locked and loaded and done. Okay. It then goes on to a lot of information about the requirements of the company then, the escrow agent, as to how we're allowed to hold it if it's in an interest-bearing account, which we do not. I don't want to document to every single person who ever comes through our firm for a transaction that we collect interest, that we get to receive the interest. I don't want the interest, not the way I want to make money. So to alleviate all of that, we're just doing a non-interest bearing escrow account. Additionally, thank you. Additionally, it's going to detail how fast we, the firm, the escrow agent, have to get that into the bank. Okay. You are going to be on my bad list if you get it to us after the required time. It's not that I'm going to be mad at you. I'm going to be unhappy because I have to report you to the Virginia Real Estate Board. If I don't report you to the Virginia Real Estate Board for turning a check in late, this is one of those instances where the cover up is worse than the crime. So the problem is we didn't get it deposited on time. The problem is you didn't bring it to us on time. But if I cover it up for you, that is way worse. Also, I would probably lose all my hair for stress. So get it to us on time. If you don't get it to us on time, we are going to have to report that to the Virginia Real Estate Board as being out of escrow. It will require a sanction from the Virginia Real Estate Board. Agents survive it. You know, typically there is a first slap on the hand, a fine. You may have to do an online class. It's not going to be devastating. It happens to some of the best agents. This is where getting those processes in place are going to keep that from ever happening. You put a notification on your phone, you put an email that's going to go out 24 hours later, you're not going to forget. Now, if you can't get it from your client, that is not something I have to report to the Virginia Real Estate Board. We do have to tell the other side of the transaction, hey, listing agent, for whatever reason, we can't get this check. Just got to let you know. And call me if that happens. Call me because I'm going to have a process in place of how to notify the other agent and the other agent's broker. And I want it in writing. So we're going to do it by email. Yes, Jennifer, do you have something to add?
Can I chime in very quickly and then you can move on? On earnest monies, if your clients are going to get them directly to the office, make sure they're coming here to the Salem office, please. Don't have them going to the Lake office. It's just difficult because one of us has to drive down there and get it. So it's saving you a trip to come to Salem, but it's making us go to the Lake. And then the second thing is when they do mail them in, if they're dropping them by, we're really good about asking, what is the property? Who are you working with? Guys, you will not believe how many times I get a check in the mail and it's only the person's name. There's no address, there's no agent mentioned, there's nothing. So please just encourage them to have some type of documentation when they're sending that check in so that we know where it goes. Sometimes we may not have received the contract from you guys yet and the check beats that here. So it makes it difficult to track down. That's all I got.
Excellent points. So let's move past that deposit section. Y'all, if you couldn't tell, I'm literally beads of sweat talking about escrow deposits because they just keep me up at night. You know, we'll get one and it, as Jennifer says, it's not labeled. And we start the panic of like, okay, whose check is this? And we know the clock is ticking. We've got to figure out whose check it is. And if you wait 2 or 3 days to send us that purchase agreement, we don't know it exists, y'all. We can't make the deposit. We don't know what property it's for. So there's a reason why we say we have to have your executed purchase agreements within 24 hours. That is why. It might cause us to go out of escrow and I've got to send a report to the Virginia Real Estate Board. Y'all gonna make me sweat. So please, please, please make sure you're sending us your purchase agreements within 24 hours and are labeling those escrow checks so that we know who they belong to. Okay, let me find my glasses here. Next, we're going to do Lenders First Trust. This is the mortgage. What mortgage product are we using? What are the terms of the mortgage product? So we're going to fill this out. We're going to say our buyer is going to do a conventional loan. We're going to check the box for conventional. Please check the box. Okay. We have to tell the seller what type of loan we're going to use, especially in a market like today, where the seller may have 4 other offers and they are organizing them by desirability. So we're going to, in this example, check conventional. If it's FHA, VA, VHDA, or other might be USDA, other might be private lender. I have some clients right now who are going to be using their parents as the bank. Their parents are going to make them a loan and charge them interest and record a note with the deed when they close on their property. So that may be a check mark and be private lending. Because I'm not going to say cash, because what if the parents say, we don't like that house. We're not going to loan you the money on that house. We don't want you buying it. Well, now I've filled out a cash contract for my buyers who have said they will bring cash and they can't get access to their money. So that would leave my buyers being in breach of contract because they better show up with cash. And if they can't get the cash, they're in breach of contract. So in that case, that would be other private lender. And I'm going to fill out the financing terms. Okay. I'm also going to explain it to the listing agent. I'm going to say, hey, these folks as parents are going to loan them the money. All right. So in this case, we're going to do conventional loan. We're going to say the loan secured by a first deed of trust lien on the property in the principal amount of, let's say my folks are bringing $40,000 as their down payment. They're expected to show up with their closing cost money and $40,000 as their down payment. Then I'm going to fill in the principal amount here. Now you can fill in 240, but I'm going to fill out. Nope, sorry. You can, don't listen to me. You can fill in 205 because they're bringing $40,000, but I'm going to fill out 204 because they're putting a $1,000 earnest money deposit down. Okay. So you can put 205, you can put 204. This is one of those no harm, no foul. If you keep all of your financing terms and you show up at closing and your buyers were given a $5,000 gift from their parents and they decide to only take out a loan amount for $200, I really doubt the seller and the listing agent are going to go, hey, you said you were going to borrow 204 and you're borrowing 200. Okay. That's a no harm, no foul. Nobody's going to care. Okay. Legally, they could care. They're not gonna. Just get it as close as you possibly can. Because what I'm saying here, and this is critical for you to recognize, me, the buyer's agent, I'm saying when I fill out 204 on there as the loan amount, I'm saying my people are going to be marching in there with $41,000. They better have the $41,000. So you have to have some seriously candid conversations with your buyers to make sure your buyers are telling you accurate information about what they're going to be bringing to the closing table. Okay. So amortized over a term of what? Typically, you're writing 30 years in here. Doesn't have to be 30 years. There are 15-year mortgages. There are 20-year mortgages. Talk to the lender. Talk to your buyers. Find out what they're planning to do. We just refinanced last year because the interest rate was 2.5%. So we went ahead and bit the bullet and did a 15-year mortgage because y'all, I'm getting up there in age. I don't want to have a mortgage in my 70s. Okay. So I could have done 30 years, but the interest rates were so irresistible. It meant only a few more $100s a month to go into a 15-year mortgage product. So that's what I did. This market is seeing some 15-year mortgages. I hadn't seen a 15-year mortgage product in years until this market. Because when you're getting a 2.5% interest rate or a 2.75% interest rate, that 15-year mortgage is pretty sweet. So just ask the questions. Don't assume that they're doing a 30-year mortgage. Okay. Ask the lender. If those details are not on that pre-qualification letter, ask the lender to put them on there. Because I see these generic pre-qualification letters that just say, yeah, we're going to give them a loan. I prefer the ones that have conventional loan, interest rate of 2.75 or 3.25, whatever. In a principal amount of $204,000 or $205,000 with no more than one loan discount point. You know, that is what I want to see on a pre-qualification letter because it gives some comfort to the seller. When the seller sees that, they're like, oh, okay, well, they're far enough along that they've even talked about terms of their mortgage. So that is what I'm looking for as a buyer's agent. So now I've filled out that first section, conventional. in the principal amount of 204. Principal amount means what are you financing? How much are you financing? And where this gives your buyer an edge is the more down payment your buyer is bringing, the lower the appraisal value has to be. And yes, Beth Ann is asking, when you fill in the purchase, let me pull that up. When you fill in the purchase contract to that degree, to that level of specificity, are the buyers locked in to do exactly that? What if they change their minds, situations change, etc.? Do you have to prepare an addendum to the contract? So yes, if they want to change any of their financing terms, it requires the seller and the buyer's agreement. So you would have to draw up an addendum to say, my buyer would like to switch to a 15-year mortgage product, and the seller would have to sign. Okay. I'm here to tell you, I don't know that that's happening. I think sellers and listing agents are like, see you at closing and you better have your money. But in this market where they have maybe perhaps turned down a few other offers, those listing agents are getting a little dicey about giving you permission to change financing terms. Because let's say your buyer wants to go from conventional to FHA, and this happens. I just had one where my cash buyers decided to take out a conventional loan. I had to say, hey, pretty please, can we pretty please switch to a loan product? Well, the seller didn't want to. They accepted a cash contract. But my buyers were saying, oh, but we found out we can borrow money so cheaply, we should really leave our cash in our investments and take out a mortgage. Well, that would have been good information for me to have had before we wrote our offer. But I managed to work it out with the listing agent that if we got past all of our termination rights, inspections, all of that stuff, then they would agree to let us use a mortgage product. But if it didn't appraise, we were buying it cash anyway. So I had to make some accommodations to give the seller a comfort level that we were going to buy it no matter what. Beth Ann, when we get down to additional financing terms, I'm going to discuss some language you can put in there that will allow some of the simple changes to not require signatures. But that is an excellent question. All right, let's go down to the next section. So we're going to say at an adjustable rate, at a fixed rate, at the prevailing rate of interest at the time of settlement. Be deliberate about what you're picking here and base it on the conversation you've had with your buyer and you've had with their lender. I am almost always saying at a fixed rate, not exceeding blank per year. And the way I'm filling this out is I'm saying, hey, lender and buyer, what type of interest rate are we getting? And if they're saying, oh, we can lock it at 3.25, I'm saying to my buyer, I can put 3.25 in there, but interest rates might rise before you lock it in. What interest rate are you willing to take and you would still want to purchase this home? And if they say, we'd go to 3.5, we don't want to, but we would, then I'm going to put 3.5 in there. And I'm going to say, not exceeding 3.5% interest. Because what I'm doing here is I'm saying, my buyer is going to take the lowest rate that is being offered to them, and they're going to lock it in. Okay. We may even extend the rate lock if the closing gets delayed in order to keep that low rate. But if the interest rate goes above 3.5%, my buyer does not have to close on this house. My buyer can terminate this contract, receive a full refund of earnest money deposit, and not be deemed in default. That's a protection the buyer's agent is building into the contract for their buyer. They're saying, we're not saying that the buyer's going to buy this no matter the loan product. That would be the bottom one here, at the prevailing rate of interest at the time of settlement. To me, that's not protecting my buyer enough. Now, I may use it because we're competing against 8 other offers and we don't want to look finicky. So instead, if we're competing, I may choose at the prevailing rate of interest at the time of settlement, but it's important for me to explain to my buyer what options I have now removed for them. So when I fill out at the prevailing rate of interest at the time of settlement, I'm going to tell my buyers, you're buying this no matter the interest rate. If that interest rate jumps up to 5%, you're buying this house. And they go, fine, we don't care. We want to buy this house. Or we're educated about interest rates. We don't think it's going to do that. But I'm at least making sure they are making the decision based on all of the information available. Okay. So that's why it's important to understand what all of these things mean. I know that agents are just running through this and being like, looks good. I think I'm supposed to check that box. I think I'm supposed to write 30 years in here. I want you to understand what you're filling out. I want you to understand what the implications of your choices are. So in most cases, I'm trying to really hammer down and nail down what our path forward is going to be. My buyer's buying it with a conventional loan, amortized over 30 years at a fixed rate not to exceed 3.5%, and requiring no more than a total of blank loan discount points. I'm gonna tell you, I filled this part out for 10 years before I even knew what a loan discount point was. I mean, I didn't get in trouble. I did not end up getting any of my buyers in a pickle, but I'm not going to explain to you what it means so that you at least know what you're filling in there. I'm almost never putting in more than one loan discount point. Loan discount points are prepaid interest. That is where your buyer can say, ugh, we got 3.5, but I don't really want 3.5. I want 3.25. And the lender says, fine, we can do one loan discount point for X dollars, and we will give you the 3.25 interest rate. Because you are giving them a bundle of cash at closing, your closing costs, the buyer's closing costs are going to be much higher because they are paying a discount point. A discount point is they're going to bring the interest rate down a point, or 1/8 of a point, or 1/4 of a point. And the buyer is going to pay cash in order to have that discount. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about discount points? You're going to have to ask the lender, and you're going to have that conversation with the lender and your buyer. Okay. And I did it. When we refinanced, I paid maybe $2,500 and I bought my rate down to 2.5% because I wanted 2.5% over 15 years. So it was worth it to me because I know I'm holding that property. I'm keeping that property forever. This is my forever home. I'm going to live there forever. So I know there's no chance of me selling in 2 years, and I've paid to buy down my rate for 2 years. That would not be worth it to me. It is worth it to me when this is where I'm living for the rest of my life, and I want to make sure I have 2.5% for the life of this mortgage. I will never have an opportunity again to get 2.5%, y'all. That was, I mean, maybe I'll be wrong, but okay. So we have now filled out that section. You are almost always going to ignore section C, which is the third party second trust. That would be if you're getting, that's going to be for a different market and a different set of rules. I think this is a little antiquated to still be on here. It used to be back in the day. It'd be like, we're getting an 80% loan from this mortgage company and a 20% loan from this other mortgage company, and we're doing 100% financing. That happened all the time. You also understand why that made a giant mess of the real estate market for a while. Let's not be those people again. So almost without exception, I have skipped C forever. Okay. Skip it for now. When the market shifts or lending changes, I'll circle back to it and we may be using that. Let's go on to the last part I want to do, which is other deposit or financing terms. Anything that you are writing into the contract that has to do with money, I want in this section. A couple of pages later in the purchase agreement, there's the additional terms section. I don't want you to use that section for financing, okay? I want you to use this section for financing. If your buyer is asking for closing costs, it goes in this section. If your buyer is saying that they're doing a conventional loan, but they want to write in an appraisal contingency, that has to do with financing, put it in this section, okay? I am always discouraged when I'm the listing agent, I'm reviewing a contract, and I've gotten the offer and I'm like, looking good, looking good, looking good. No, they're not asking for closing costs, looking good. Last page, additional terms, they'd like $10,000 in closing costs. And I'm like, oh, so close. I want to see it in this additional financing terms. It's just a style preference, okay? It can go in additional terms 2 or 3 pages later. I think it makes more sense here. So this is where you're going to write in language about buyer paid closing costs. This is where you're going to write in about an appraisal contingency. Those are not, I'm not going to teach you how to do those right this second. That'll be a topic for another conversation. But please know that if you're hovering your mouse in that section, a little piece of parchment paper is going to float into view. If you click on that, it's going to take you to broker clauses. If you click on that, then click on the quill pen, then click on broker. It's going to take you into clauses I've already written for you. In there are appraisal contingencies where you can just insert the language that says seller and purchaser agree that this contract is contingent upon an appraisal valued at $240,000 or greater, or the purchaser may reserve the right to terminate the contract, receive a full refund of earnest money deposit, and not be deemed in default. Or seller and purchaser agree to attempt renegotiations. And if renegotiations are not fruitful, seller and purchaser reserve the right to terminate the contract, receive a full refund of earnest money deposit to the buyer, and neither party will be deemed in default. There we go. Call me. I'll give you the language. I'll email it to you. You can cut and paste it in there. The generic one I have in those broker clauses may not be exactly what you want. It's worked for other markets, being that plain, giving a buyer a termination right if it doesn't appraise. In this market now, I'm seeing listing agents saying, no, we want some language in there that will attempt renegotiations. But call me, because what I'm seeing is people putting in there, or they will renegotiate. And then there's a period after that. Well, then what happens after that? What if you can't renegotiate? What if the seller says, ugh, I'm not going that low? And the buyer says, well, I don't have any extra cash. We have not laid out the plan for if renegotiations are not fruitful. So call me, I'll give you the language for that. So if your buyer is doing any government-backed loan, VA, FHA, VHDA, USDA, you're going to be required to put the standard clauses addendum with it, because the standard clauses addendum has some government-backed loan information that is required to be part of this contract. If you're doing a conventional loan or a cash contract, there is no appraisal language. There is no appraisal contingency. You have to write it in, because the last little piece I want to show you, which is terrifying, is 11E. 11E says balance of the purchase price to be paid by purchaser in cash, cashier's check, certified check, or wire transfer funds at settlement. That means if I've written this conventional offer as a buyer's agent and I have not written in an appraisal contingency or an appraisal requirement that it be at or above purchase price, and that appraisal comes in low, the seller's going to say, tough. You did not put in an appraisal contingency. You said you were buying it for $245,000. We will see you at closing. And 11E, in my opinion, says that we're going to show up with the funds to settle, regardless of appraisal. We never said anything about appraisal. And that seller may say, no, we specifically chose your offer because you did not have an appraisal contingency. And that has become a problem in this market, because you all know houses are selling at or above market value. Well, market value is not always the same as appraised value. So appraised value will creep up and follow market value in most cases. But typically market value goes faster than appraised value, because obviously you have to have the new comps, the new comparables, justifying the prices that are rising in the neighborhood. So if you're doing a conventional loan, you must have the conversation with your buyer about what if the appraisal comes in low. And you have to build in the appraisal contingency. Now I've already written it for you. It's in those broker clauses. You can access them. I even have a small, very short YouTube video on our YouTube channel showing you my screen step by step to get to those broker clauses. There are also ones in there about septic inspections and the seller being required to locate the septic drain field and the septic access panel. So there are definitely some great clauses that are already preloaded in there for you. So if you haven't messed around on there, go on there, take a look, see what's available. And if you go to the YouTube channel, you can see step by step, a little 2-minute video about how to get to those clauses and how to insert them into your purchase agreement. Okay. That's all I'm going to discuss today on this financing section. I saw the tops of everybody's heads, which is fantastic because that means y'all were taking notes the whole time. So I'm thrilled. So I'm going to stop recording and we're going to open it up to questions.